Hey everyone, Becky here. With Slammiversary coming this Saturday, I thought it was high time I recorded my thoughts on the upcoming pay-per-view, and for once, I have thoughts on every match on the card. There have been 7 matches announced for Slammiversary 2021, and with no further ado, I will get started. First up, we have Eddie Edwards versus W. Morrissey. And I'll be honest, coming up with a winner for this match wasn't that hard. Ever since W. Morrissey arrived in Impact, he's really been running over and through opponents left and right. Given that he's already laid out Eddie Edwards once, I can't help but think that this trend will continue in his upcoming match, not least because it will continue to establish Morrissey as a dominant heel in Impact Wrestling. I therefore predict that the winner will be W. Morrissey. Next up, we have Fire and Flava versus Havoc and Rosemary for the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Championship. Havoc and Rosemary are quickly becoming one of my favorite tag teams to watch. I've said before, I love Rosemary's gimmick, and paired with Havoc, those two look to be nigh on unstoppable given the proper motivation, and boy are they motivated to get their hands on those belts. It doesn't help that Fire and Flava have been talking a lot of smack in recent weeks, and I have a feeling the time for their comeuppance is at hand. I predict the winners and new Knockouts Tag Team Champions will be Havoc and Rosemary. Then we have Violent by Design versus Rich Swann and Willie Mack versus TJP and Flava versus the Good Brothers for the Impact World Tag Team Championship. Now, as much as I have enjoyed Violent by Design's time with the tag team titles, the odds of them retaining in a 4-way contest is extremely low, and of all the other options, the most likely one to me appears to be Rich Swann and Willie Mack. I initially thought it might be the Good Brothers, until I remembered that Carl Anderson is challenging Jon Moxley for the IWGP US Championship tomorrow on Dynamite, a match I think Anderson is going to win, and it wouldn't make sense to me to make him a double champion, although he's more than talented. Assuming that's the case, with Anderson going over on Dynamite, it only makes sense to give the tag team titles to Rich Swann and Willie Mack. Both men are immensely talented, and a win like this would get Rich Swann on an upward trajectory, again, after losing his world title to Kenny Omega at Rebellion. Therefore, I predict the winners will be Rich Swann and Willie Mack. Then we have Deonna Purrazzo versus a to-be-announced opponent for the Impact Knockouts Championship. And for me, this was the hardest match on the card to predict, as I'm ashamed to confess that I'm still not as familiar with the current state of women's wrestling outside of AEW as I should be. However, based on what I've seen of Deonna Purrazzo's storyline, I can only assume that, 1, this match is going to be used to highlight a huge name that Impact has signed and is revealing as a surprise, and 2, whoever this opponent is, they're likely big enough to take the title away from Deonna. So with that being said, I predict that the winner will be Deonna's mystery opponent. Then we have Chris Sabin versus Moose in a match that I'm greatly looking forward to. I initially thought that I would have problems predicting the outcome of Chris Sabin versus Moose, but then I realized it isn't really that complicated. I've always rooted for the underdog in a match, and that's definitely Chris Sabin in this situation. Plus, it makes sense for Sabin to go over, because he's seeking revenge against Moose for injuring him several months ago. So while I think that this match will be a close and very brutal fight, there's only one winner that I can reasonably predict, and that is Chris Sabin. Then, in an Ultimate X match, we have Josh Alexander versus Petey Williams versus Trey Miguel versus Ace Austin versus Chris Bay versus Rohit Raju for the Impact X Division Championship. There are so many good contenders for the X Division title right now, but I feel like this match could literally go to anyone here and no one would be disappointed. However, since I have to choose a winner, I'm going to go with Josh Alexander retaining his title. Yes, I know that it's unlikely, but he's shown himself to be a very strong champion, and I feel that even in an environment as unpredictable as Ultimate X, and believe me, I know from experience that anything can happen in one of those matches, I feel that Josh Alexander has the ability to retain. So I predict the winner will be Josh Alexander. Finally, we have the main event of Slammiversary, Kenny Omega versus Sammy Callahan for the Impact World Championship. Now, as many of you know, or may be figuring out, I am a huge fan of Kenny Omega. Probably will be for the rest of my days. And I was so very tempted to immediately pencil in Kenny Omega as the winner of this match until I saw last week's contract signing and what Sammy Callahan was able to do to Kenny. And as a reminder, he laid Kenny out flat. And that got my brain thinking. What if Slammiversary is the start of Kenny's downfall from being a triple champion to not being a champion at all? Think about it. Starting with Slammiversary this Saturday, Kenny has 3 confirmed title bouts, 1 each month. He defends the Impact title in July, the AAA Mega Campeonato in August at Triple Mania, and the AEW title, if a title match doesn't happen sooner, in September at All Out. We all know Kenny is going to start losing those titles eventually, so why not have the first domino fall at Slammiversary? The Impact title was the last title that Kenny won. It would make sense that it would be the first to go. Plus, in terms of storyline, you just know that Sammy Callahan being champion would drive most of that roster crazy. For those reasons, I think the time has come to bid adieu to Kenny Omega being a triple champion. And so my prediction, reluctantly, is that the winner will be, and new Impact champion, will be Sammy Callahan. And that is my predictions for the upcoming Slammiversary pay-per-view. I've already got the pay-per-view purchased, so I will be very curious to see if any of my predictions are correct. And let me know in the comments below what you think of my predictions for Slammiversary 2021. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel also. Until then, I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.